think of these carvings as creatures in some ways. They feel like they take on a life of their own in the making process. A feral creature of something that doesn't sit comfortably, of something that is outside a parameter that you can kind of categorize and decide this is this. So part of me feels like they're kind of in gestation, but also part of me feels like they're being completely consumed by another animal and then something else is coming out from there. So is it a point of decay or is it a point of new life? And they kind of illuminate in different ways, which is the wonderful quality of alabaster as well. It has a kind of a liveliness to it. My name is Hannah Morgan and I create sculptural installation that is interdisciplinary, so it spans a wide range of materials and approaches. The themes of my work are incredibly varied. And I suppose my work is essentially comes from a position of worlding, and within those worlds it's about investigating underground spaces and structures, and then what could exist in those spaces and structures, and where there's points of collaboration or contamination or slippages. The beginnings and endings of life is something that is like a consistent theme that runs through. So I think about decay, the feral elements of the underland worlds, and emergences that come from that. So wherever there is decay, there's moments of growth and expansion. And the underground world has all of that. And we as humans have gone into the underground for these kind of unknowns and these unanswerables quite a lot. The term underland is anything below our perceived horizon and our feet in very different scales, from looking literally underneath the topsoil and seeing how worms navigate through, all the way through to thinking about large scale, what would be called natural cave systems. So it's not necessarily just the underground, it's actually more about the unseen. It's also about the speculative. Underland is a land that we don't comprehend on a daily basis. It's always there, but we don't have the foresight to look at it. It's really tricky talking about this as well, because mining is mining. And in some places it doesn't happen with care or attention to the earth or the people that are being put down there. Which is why I work with excess from mines. I don't work with material that I request to come out. So the title of a lot of my projects recently has been under this umbrella of Animula, which means little soul. And I first came across it in a Frieze Hii poem called Electric Light, and it was given to me by my dad, who was very into poetry, and especially kind of Celtic radical poetry with a socialist hint. It actually comes from a tombstone of Hadrian, where he refers to Animula, little soul. So a little soul is part death, part life, and it's also something that you can't really categorize. So I like being within spaces of slippages or liminal spaces, like the uncategorizable being the thing to venerate and bring forward. The works appear in like a multitude of ways, and I think I work in a very kind of sprawling, collected, experimental, playful way. That these things just feel like they're growing and evolving, just like the worlds that I kind of create at the very beginning of research. Most of the work also is modular, like the frameworks. So I think my works kind of come from the idea of creating frameworks and then things kind of fit into them. But then I also get focused on certain materials when they're really kind of giving something back to me. English Alabaster, I think, is a really beautiful and intriguing stone, partly because it sucks up the minerality and mineral elements of the earth around it, and you get these reddy-brown tones, but then you also get certain veins and seams where they will be kind of greyish in colour, or they'll have maybe a bit of sulphur, so a little bit of yellow or green will come through. So you get a real sense of how the stone has been formed. This is one of the latest pieces, and if you come around on this side, you'll be able to see this is the crust. So this here is the crust that's formed from the surface, and then I kind of like cut in, but you can see here all the mineral deposits and then how it's compacted in. I suppose I use like quite a variety of techniques, and some things I kind of leave. This is not finished, this is kind of in process, but I like seeing sometimes the kind of carving marks as well as like doing the high shine. But stone has been a bit of a revelation. I was never formally taught how to carve, really just developed as a kind of a physical knowing that my brain and hands could communicate something in a stone. So places that I visit as part of my research are mainly libraries. I first came to the Warburg and was inducted when I was in my first year at the Slade. And it was kind of a revelation. It was really exciting. I think especially because I'm neurodivergent, having a library that is literally just around thematics is amazing. So you come in, you're like, wow, okay, I can get this. It's not all about remembering A to Z. It's more an intuitive sensibility that I have when I'm looking and researching that the Warburg offers me. So these are the subject catalogues. And say you want to look up something like moon, for instance. You go to M, you go to moon, and it gives you all of the indexes of where you can find it. So here you've got moon in folk and medicine, which is where I've looked at stuff before, and also moon illusion. In the Warburg, because these things are categorised thematically, you get an open-ended way of researching, which is joyful. So one of the first things I started looking at was kind of mythological moments where the underland interacts, and Hecate, who is the goddess of the underworld, with the 3 different heads, the different directions you can go, these kind of moments of threshold and crossing over into another moment. There is that thing of, if you were underground, where would you want to go towards? Where do plants want to go towards? You want to go towards a light. There's intrigue in the dark, but eventually you'll go back out into light.